personally be involved in war are the stimulus for our community to work for peace. Our efforts are not only limited to demonstrations, but also include letter writing to legislators, trying to inform the public about, for example, at the farmers market, there was a table for information on the Middle East situation. And we also help in the religious group to coordinate the monthly prayer vigils for peace. Peace is not only achieved cannot be achieved without justice. For example, when we were in Iraq, we had a house and there were little huts of peasants who had fled from their country, from their villages, had their buffaloes with them, were feeding them right outside of the house because the big landlords sort of made it impossible for them to make a living. So in the Iraq 58 revolution, there was a change and they started land reform, and I happened to be helping in the land reform work there to have social justice for the people there. We thank you all for being here tonight, and we thank you for your work for peace and justice. Thank you.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no country.
seat as we introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. Many of you know her and I'm sure have worked with her. Maybe some of you have experienced the much good she's done for our community. I've had her on my program numerous times to talk about social justice issues. She was a farm worker at the tender age of 10 down in Skagit County. She knows justice and she knows injustice, and we're honored to give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker tonight, Rosalinda Ian.
I just wanted to thank the Walking Peace and Justice Center and Janet Marino. I wanted to say that it's been an honor to meet her. I know Marie Marchand, worked with her before in the Peace and Justice Center, but I understand, I met with Janet, and I'm really grateful that I was asked to speak here today. And I like making the connection with the Peace and Justice Center and the work that we do at community to community development. So I'm a farm worker. I come from the farm worker movement, the tradition of Cesar Chavez. And I would like to, before I begin speaking, to just do the farm worker meditation tonight. And I would like to ask Angie to read it. She is a member of our, have read the farm worker meditation written by Cesar Chavez during some very warlike times in this country in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s.
Show me the suffering of the most miserable, so I may know my people's plight.
Show me the suffering of the most miserable, so I may know my people's plight. If you could repeat after her.
Free me to pray for others, for you are present in every person, that I can be free at last.
Help me take responsibility for my own life so that I can be free at last.
Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there is true life.
Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there is true life.
Give me honesty and patience, so that I can work with others.
Give me honesty, patience, song, and celebration, so that the Spirit will be alive among us.
Let the Spirit flourish and grow, so that we will never tire of the struggle.
Let the Spirit flourish and grow, so that we will never tire of the struggle.
Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life.
Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life.
Help us love even those who hate us, so we can change the world.
Help us love even those who hate us. So Angie made a sign that said, make burritos, not war. And I just want to thank Angie for helping me tonight. And thank you all for marching with us. And it's an honor. I've marched in these marches before, and it's an honor. It's like a family gathering to be with you and to gather and talk about peace. I wanted to start out by saying, from my husband Joseph. And I think that really to understand what happens in war and what our country is doing, you should speak with the veterans that are coming back from all of our wars. And I'm sure that some of us do. It took me a long time to understand really what happens to a soldier during war. And I think the fact that I'm speaking here tonight is an interesting, we are very cognizant of the fact that we are also living in warlike times most of our lives in our communities. And so in many ways, we are removed from the organized, militarized wars that our country is waging, because we're suffering the effects of the lack of resources for poor communities. And so this connection, I think, is very important that we make in our communities, that folks, like farm workers and others who are actually not going into war, or not being soldiers in a war, and are not participating in some very organized peace movement communities. And so I wanted to talk about this whole idea of a radical peace culture. What does that mean? And I've been thinking a lot about it, and speaking with my husband Joseph, and the idea of how do you live in peace after you come back from a war, and you have in your head all of the things that you have observed and the injustices that are still very vivid in your head. So I've been thinking about this. And I went and looked at the word radical, who the radicals are, and taking radical positions, and speaking radically. So I wanted to, before I started talking about it, I thought, what does radical mean? And radical is actually, I'm sure many of you know this, derived from the Latin word radix, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right in the Latin term, but it means pertaining to the roots. So it means that a radical is one who advocates through ongoing analysis, ongoing thorough analysis or change from the root, that it comes from the create radical change. So a radical principle means that you're favoring fundamental or extreme change. And I think that that is a very proper word for a peace culture and for creating change in our community. And what is war? Again, the official definition is a state of usually open and declared armed hostile conflict between states or nations in a period of armed conflict. It also means a state of hostility, a state of conflict, or antagonism. It also goal. And that really struck me when we're talking about the definition of war. Because I think we are living in this country today under that definition of war. That we are in a state of hostility in this country, in a state of ongoing hostility and ongoing conflict and competition between some very strong opposing forces. We are one of those forces. And over the last few months, I have been privileged through our network and have witnessed and participated with my brothers and sisters from many movements in the United States, and have observed the growth of a movement on many fronts towards peace and towards an understanding of how we are going to build a radical peace culture from many points. The anti-war movement, the peace movement of the farm worker movement, and the struggle that Cesar Chavez waged and that farm workers have waged for